That's another story, I guess.
Uh,
Appreciate y'all having me. What's the subject?
yeah, of course. Right now we're talking NBA.
All right.
But we're not talking what's happening with teams in general or Suns, but we're talking about the situation that's occurring right now. We have COVID out there. We have the pandemic that we're still living through. It's not gone away, and it's not going to go away for a while.
Right.
And we're seeing how it's starting to affect teams and having games postponed. And how, Aaron and I were just talking about how NFL was able to pretty much have a successful season, not having it be affected so much. But then again, they only play once a week versus NBA. They play about every day.
Almost.
So, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I want to get what your thoughts are on this. Are we going to see another bubble in 2021? What's going to be the course of the NBA season, being that so many players and so many games have been affected so far this week? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Adam Silver has done an amazing job with the NBA. They have enough data after doing the bubble last year to get a feel for what they should be doing when things start to get out of control. And they are equipped to shut things down for a 14-day period and resume after a 14-day period. They're equipped for that. The NBA knows how to do that. They've done all the protocols and going through all the things with the bubble, so they know how to do it. I think they're going to automatically do a playoff bubble again. I think that's inevitable. They have to do that because the playoffs don't want to be affected by key guys being out like the NFL's going through right now. I think the NBA is equipped for it, though. I think they've seen it. They've been there. The bubble, they know it works, so they know they can always fall back on that bubble when things get out of control. But there's some talk going around that they could shut this thing down for 2 weeks just to catch up on things, get everybody back into square one, and see if that's going to be something that'll ease the spread of this thing going around. Because it looks like some of these players are catching it by playing with players. It's not like they're catching off the court and going somewhere. It looks like it could be that they're catching it player to player by competition wise. And if that's the case, you have to shut this thing down and let it catch up, and 14-day quarantine, let everybody, get refocused, because it's going to continue to go as these teams start to go on the road. And then you're talking 7 to 8 days before you even show symptoms. So there's no way to catch up with that. You have to kind of let this thing die down. I think Adam Silver is smart enough to do something like that, and it could be happening soon.
And I think that is very possible, Earl, especially if you have more situations like you have with the Miami Heat. Right. With as many teams, the Heat and the Sixers, with as many players that they've been ravaged with, that have been affected by this COVID situation. If there are more teams that have big outbreaks like that, and you're not equipped with enough players and personnel, like we talked about, Miami may not even play tonight in Philadelphia because they don't even know if they can suit up enough players, because Bam is out with this thing, and Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic are affected, along with 4 other players. So if you can't field the right amount of personnel, how can they play?
Yeah, and at the same time, if you know that team is being riddled with the virus and that many people are out, even if you had enough players, would you want to play that team? Because they've been around each other in practices. You don't know who has it.
Why risk your team getting infected?
Exactly. You're going to risk your team, because those guys that just don't necessarily test positive that day could test positive 3-4 days later after you get breathed on after playing them. And now your team's going to get riddled with them. So it's like, you have to slow this thing down. The only way to slow this thing down is to cut it off for 14 days. Then decide if you want to do a bubble right then and there out of the gate of those 14 days, or just let everything die down, let everybody catch their breath and get refocused, get the season over with, and then implement a bubble going into the playoffs.
Earl, I thought that if they try to implement a bubble right now for the remainder of those games, that's a lot of games. I don't know if the Players Association would go for that. I don't know if the players would go for that many games in a bubble situation. I told Joe, it was hard enough. We all saw that. It was hard enough for those players to go down there and be in a playoff scenario just in Orlando. If you're asking these guys to go down there for 50 or 55, 60 games, I don't know if they're going to go for that.
That's true. I mean, then being away from their families that long, and it's going to be a longer period of time.
Yes,
but like
and you're cooped up in one spot that many months. I don't think they're going to go for that.
At the same time, it would be the safest bet that you would not have another COVID breakout. And at the same time, the NBA has done it before. They know it works. They'd had not one case after that bubble went down, not one. And there was several teams, minus the 8 teams that didn't make it in the bubble. Everybody made it in there and made it out of there safely. After they started bringing family members in and all those things went down, they kept it out of there. So if worst case scenario where you're starting to be affected, like key players are being affected on the NBA on a nightly basis, they're going to shut this thing down at some point.
Yeah, it's a bit only inevitable that we're going to see some type of a repeat that we saw last year.
Absolutely. Unless this vaccine gets to rolling a lot faster and the NBA still says, hey, can we flex our muscles and get that vaccine over to our players before the world gets it? Sometimes leagues can do things like that if they really want to, but we'll see. I think they're going to go back to that bubble at some point, though, because that's the safest bet.
Definitely. And in one way or another, it's only time before we actually see that happen.
Yeah, because, the NBA said on Sunday night, the last thing they want to do is shut this thing down. Wow. But if that's what it comes to, if that's what they have to do because this thing continues to outbreak, then that's just a plan they're going to have to do at the last second. They're just going to have to, just change course at the last second and bring up that decision. This thing is, as I told Joe, Earl, it's so fluid. You just don't know from second to second how this thing is going to affect everybody.
That's true. That's so true. You never know how it's going to affect everybody. And at the same time, also, you just don't have enough players on one team to be able to, keep afloat competitively. You lose 5 guys that are key guys, your bench and your third stringers are playing, you're not going to be competitive that night. So, it is what it is. I know it's hard, and teams just have to kind of adapt to it, because I would just hate to see a playoff series come down to COVID taking somebody out. That would be the worst case scenario. That would be a bad thing. If you're waiting to see if this Suns team finally gets to the playoffs after so many years, then all of a sudden we get riddled with COVID-19 through the playoffs and we get taken out. That everybody's going to be kind of disappointed with that. So I gotta imagine that Adam Silver he's been on top of this thing. I got to give him that. He has been on top of this thing and has been the best commissioner throughout this whole sports thing when it comes to this COVID thing, in my opinion. And I think he'll sit at the table and get something done. I think he'll see what's best for the team and for his league, and not only see the dollar signs. I think he's looking at it as, let's protect these people first, and let's see how we can keep our league going the best way, even if we do lose some revenue here and there. And he sacrificed a lot of revenue and stuff. So it's about the health and the safety of the players, as opposed to the NFL just saying, hey, we balling no matter what. This is about that bill. So right. Adam Silver's been pretty good. So I think he'll come up with something, in the next, whatever time's coming up, and how these things go down in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they've got to lose that much money. Probably hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion or more. But like you said, Earl, it's all about the safety of your personnel and the integrity of your organization, the NBA.
Absolutely.
And Adam Silver's got to look at all that stuff and weigh all of his options to see what he can do to make this thing work.
Got to give him props. He's done an amazing job under all these bad circumstances that are going on right now. He has done an amazing job. So, I'm looking forward to see what he's going to do with this situation. Really looking forward to it. And as a matter of fact, I've heard some rumblings, like I said, that a 14-day shutdown is not, it's on the table. It's on the table, so it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things. Adam Silver, I think that's something that other leagues can learn from him. And, one of the ones that can, I'm going to put it out there. I said it, and one that I'm not happy with, and hopefully it's MLB. A different season. Yes, MLB. I do not want to see a repeat of that. We'll get a little bit into that later in the show, but if we can have just Adam Silver, in one way be able to kind of like oversee all the other leagues to give them some, a little bit of advice and guidance, he's just been phenomenal with the NBA. That would be great.
Right.
But let's go ahead and get into a little bit of football. We had the crazy wild card weekend that just happened. There were some surprises in there. So we had the Colts and the Bills, the Rams and the Seahawks, Bucks and Washington, Ravens and Titans, the Browns and the Steelers. My goodness, that game. And then we had the Bears and the Saints. So a little bit of recap of what happened this weekend. For me, I was really surprised to see Sunday's game, Browns versus the Steelers, in the type of game that it came out to be. Did not expect to see Ben Roethlisberger, especially in the first half of the game, play, and then just the Steelers in general, have that team play the way that they did. They kind of got a little bit together as they, in the second half of the game. We also saw the Bears, how they went down against the Saints. Did not expect it to be 9-21, get final score. But there were some surprises in there. We saw that, we have the Seahawks, they fell to the Rams. So I'm happy about that one. What was your biggest surprise out of this last weekend, Earl?
Oh, wow. Well, surprise would have to definitely be how Pittsburgh went down to Cleveland, of course. I was definitely expecting that to be a more competitive game early on and a battle early on throughout the whole thing. And I thought for sure that Pittsburgh, being the bigger brother all the time, would flex their muscles at some point and the Browns would bow down like they normally do. But this is what can happen when you come in and underestimate a team. This is what can happen when you talk a bunch of crap in the media that you have to back up, and then that pressure gets, that is like a pressure pot that's getting ready to blow. The pressure gets so strong and so high that it bursts and loses, and you lose it. And that pressure was too high on those kids. I mean, Smith-Schuster coming in there just, talking a bunch of crap all week that this is the same old Browns, but it motivated the Browns. It motivated them. I mean, here's a team that's coming in without their head coach, without other coaches and other players due to COVID. I mean, it had no practices the whole week, everything on Zoom, and you get shellacked like that, 28-0 in the first quarter. That team was motivated, and they did not want to see another Pittsburgh loss, and they went out there and played like. And I got to give props to Baker Mayfield. Baker went out there and played a game that I have never seen him play that under control, and that sound of a ball game he played. He had that team under control, and they went and did what they were supposed to do and got out of there amazingly. And that running game is amazing. And Pittsburgh can't run the ball anymore. That was another main problem they had. They could not run the ball for anything. I mean, Connor couldn't get nothing going, and Ben was all they had. He threw the ball, 60-something times in that game?
68 times, yeah.
My goodness,
so
that's just
70.
ridiculous. 60-something times is just too many times to be throwing the ball. And making the dink and dunk your running game pretty much is what they did. But the Browns were not going to give up that big play. So that was the surprise to me. When it comes to what I thought was really cool was to finally see Lamar Jackson get over the hump and win a playoff game, because I said it on the show last week. This game was his crossroads to having a awesome, elite career, or having that little stem on that thing on his back where, he can't win the big one. And you know how that goes. You know how it goes. So I was really happy to see him get that off his chest, and he don't have to worry about that. He can relax and play his game and do what he does. So I thought that was pretty good too. But surprise definitely had to be that Cleveland Browns game over Pittsburgh for sure.
So, Joe, if we're going to do a good, bad, and ugly, I'm going to start the ugly. That would be the Pittsburgh Steelers turning the ball over 5 times. Very first play of the game, Marquise Pouncey hikes the ball over Ben Roethlisberger's head, and that results in a touchdown. You just know it just was not going to be Pittsburgh's night. When it started off that way, and then 4 more turnovers after
15 seconds into the game.
Yeah. Right?
I was outside before that game started. This is no lie. I was outside before that game started, and I said, I'm going to go out here and just wash my car, because, this game Pittsburgh about to run shot over Cleveland right now. And I said that. When outside, I started washing the car, and I said, this game is on. Let me go check the score real quick. In my mind, walking back to my office, I said, watch Pittsburgh be up 14-0 or something. And I'm like, 28 to nothing. And I was like, I was shocked. I was like, okay, what just happened?